Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you. We appreciate your spending your time helping us make this the best project that we can possibly do. We are here tonight to talk about our plans for a solar system to be put at the corner of Britcher and Peck Roads. And I would like to introduce some of the people who will be our speakers tonight. Arnie, would you stand up and take a little bow here, please? Thanks, so Arnie is our consultant. He is the managing partner for Progressive Energy Group, and he is one of our experts who has guided us through the whole RFP process. Eric, give us a wave. Eric Peterman is the CEO of GRNE Solar and will be helping us tonight understand what I call Solar 101, because his presentation will include a lot of interesting information about solar. And I have my intrepid warrior here, Ivy, my resource management coordinator. She is Kane County staff member, and so she has been just fantastic in helping us understand these issues. So thank you for being here. And so our first speaker, Ivy, would you like to do some more introductions?
Yes, thanks, Mavis. And also give a warm welcome to Mavis Bates, our Kane County board member and chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. We do also have some other Kane County board members here today. If you want, should we do introductions quickly?
Chris, would you introduce yourself, please?
Chris Caius, District 23 in Algonquin.
Dale Berman, District 2, North Aurora.
Barbara Wonicky, the center of the county, District 15.
Do we have any board members on the? Todd, please.
Todd Wallace, District 13, St. Charles and Geneva.
Great. Do we have any board members on the Zoom call?
Good evening, Myrna Molina, Aurora District 1.
Okay, thank you.
And Mavis, we also have Dave Brown, District 10.
Thank you, Dave, for joining us.
And we have Vern Tepe, District 22.
Okay, thank you to my board members here to support our efforts. So Ivy is going to give you a little bit more of an introduction about public comment and things like that.
Thanks, Mavis. Just a quick note before we get started with the presentations. Our meeting is being recorded and live streamed via YouTube and Zoom today. The recording will be posted to the Kane County YouTube channel after the meeting. If anyone needs assistance finding that link, please feel free to reach out to me. I can send that directly to you. The slides from the presentation will be posted on our website tomorrow. We are asking everyone who's here in person to please abide by the COVID safety procedures. I know the chairs are super spread out, so I apologize for that. We're just trying to keep everyone safe. There will be a question and answer after the presentation section of the meeting. I think since we do have a few people here today, maybe what we'll do is we have some question cards on the podium. So feel free to take a question card and fill out any questions that you have during the presentations, and then I'll collect those at the end of the presentations, and I'll read the questions that we have in person. And then any questions that we have online, I'll read those as well. Feel free to put those in the chat if you are with us via Zoom. And after the question and answer section, we'll have a public comment section. If you're here in person, please feel free to sign up. There is a sign up sheet at the podium as well. So please feel free to sign up for that if you're interested. And I believe that those are all our housekeeping items for today. Eric Peterman, please feel free to get started with your presentation. I'm going to come give you the clicker really quick.
If you're on Zoom and you would like to make a public comment or a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on the chat as we're going through the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for wearing your masks. I'm so happy we didn't have to ask again.
restart in 1 second.
Got it.
It might lag a little bit.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you, Mavis and Ivy and Energy Committee and Kane County Board and everybody in attendance today. It's always great to have these opportunities to discuss great projects like this, education, hear concerns, make sure that everybody understands what we're trying to achieve here. And I will say that Mavis and Ivy are phenomenal to work with. So Kane County and the residents, you guys have a top-notch crew here. We've worked with a lot of different municipalities and they are just phenomenal, covering all sorts of different aspects of just due diligence and professionalism. So it's been a pleasure to work with you. I am Eric Peterman with GRNE Solar, born and raised in Illinois. I'm with GRNE Solar based in Palatine, Illinois. We have been working with Kane County to develop the solar project. Happy to answer any questions today as we go through the presentation. As Mavis said at the beginning, happy to make this more of a dialogue and informative. So that's definitely what we're shooting for here. We've prepared some slides of what we've seen as frequently asked questions or topics that come up. So we're happy to run through these, but also to take any questions and discuss the product further as well. Right, the clicker's working, that's great. So here you can see some of the topics that we'll cover today, a little bit about us, the product itself, what a solar panel system looks like and anatomy of it, sound studies, landscaping, site maintenance, and any questions at the end, obviously, as well. I mentioned I'm with GRNE Solar. Next year will be 10 years in business, which is very exciting because although that doesn't seem like a long time for a company, in the solar industry, that's an eternity. We are based in the Midwest. We have offices in Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and Nebraska. And we operate all the way from the residential sector, putting solar panels on people's homes, up to utility scale and products such as this with governmental entities and municipalities as well. We do O&M for the life of the service for the PPA agreements that we're proposing with this product. And we've also have built a team that is well-versed and known as experts in the industry, speaking at different conferences or panels to make sure that people are educated on what solar is and get questions answered. The two projects that we've done nearby are the Kendall County project and the Fox Metro project. They are almost identical in scope to what we're talking with Kane County about here. So you can see those pictures here. These were completed last year. These fields are operational and are currently saving money for Kendall County and Fox Metro as we speak. Here's a little bit of a portfolio of other projects that we've done. As I mentioned, we focus on the Midwest. This product is in Arlington Heights, Illinois, for a private customer. But we've done this type of project, private customers, public customers, and all different entities in between. One thing we always like to take time to do is just take a step back and explain how solar works. A lot of people know about solar or have some ideas of how it works, but it's always good just to set the ground level. On this example here, you can see solar panels on the roof. Solar panels can really be located anywhere as long as they have direct access to sun. The sun hits the solar panels and knocks around electrons and makes energy. That energy is created in what's called DC, direct current energy. That comes down into step 2, where, the pointer works too, to an inverter. That inverter then changes that direct current into alternating current. Most of the homes that we live in, including this room, runs off alternating current. So then that becomes usable energy. That goes then into your existing electrical panel and used at your home for any lights or other loads that you have. Any excess energy is then pushed back onto the grid and goes back to ComEd. So the power that's being produced at your home or at your building is being used at your building, and then any excess is pushed back to the grid where you're getting net metering credits from the utility. Here's a look at what a typical installation might look like. First, you'll see the racking in the back. That's steel and aluminum. That's the support structure. The inverter here, as I mentioned, is kind of the brains of the system. That's what converts DC to AC. And then the solar panel here located with direct access to the sun, letting the rays hit the solar panel, absorb that light, knock around the electrons and create the energy that then becomes usable. Dissecting a solar panel to see what's inside of it. And I actually brought one today. If anybody wants to see one up close, it's in the back of the room. Feel free to stop by and check it out. There's an aluminum frame on the outside, a double pane layer of glass, the solar cell itself, which is made up of sand, silicon, and ingot, and then a glass protection on the back as well. A junction box that protects the wires, and then the electricity that runs through those leads into the existing electrical service of your home or your building. The racking anatomy. One thing that's unique, or I think peculiar about these type of products, larger products, is they actually rotate with the sun. So the solar panels are going to start out at the beginning of the day facing east as the sun rises. And then that motor is actually going to move the solar panel throughout the day. And at the end of the day, face west, so that it's achieving the sun as it goes down on the western sky. So that's why you see a motor here and the tilt. On the right, on this side over here, is a cross section of what it looks like if you're looking from the side. So this is the post that goes into the ground that is the support structure. And then above the ground, you'll see here, we're facing east. And then as it rotates at the end of the day, we'll be facing west to collect the sun at the optimal angles.
Yeah, like 8.5 feet.
If I can, Blair, it's not advancing for me.
Hold it up. Yeah.
There we go. Next is a breakdown of the inverter assembly. So this is what it looks like, pretty nondescript white box from the outside. On the inside is where all the electronics lie. Similar to maybe a computer, there's a fan that runs to keep the electronics cool inside. There's a interface on the front so that you can see the output from the electricity being produced, and then fuses and junction box to collect that power, change it from DC to AC, and then out to the existing AC infrastructure. On this project, there will be 16 inverters spread throughout the array. That's what's planned as of now.
16 what?
16 inverters, 16 of these white boxes.
Okay.
How big are these inverters? They're about 2 feet wide and about 4 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet tall. They'll sit with inside the array, so they'll actually be mounted on the racking structure. Any other questions on the inverters or? Great question. Is there any sound that comes from them? That's a great lead into the next couple slides. So I'll answer that as we move forward with it.
Same question.
Same question. Great. It means we're on track then. The questions that are being answered are on the slide deck. Anything else? Great. Sound. I am not an expert in sound. And this is kind of a scale from an expert that shows typical decibel levels. So starting from the left, kind of a quiet rural area, 0 to 30 decibels, a library whisper, 40 decibels, vacuum cleaner, 70. And then as you get into kind of the upper right, it's categorized as dangerous levels. So car horn, chainsaw, and up by a jet or airplane taking off. So this is just a reference to kind of decibel levels, which will help set the stage for how solar impacts that. Solar panels itself don't make any noise at all. So you can see the solar panel in the back of the room. It's when it's operating that there's no noise that comes from the solar panel itself. So that's 0 decibels. For the trackers and the racking material, the study from the manufacturer shows that when it's operational during the peak time of day, and these are only operational when the sun's shining, so not at night or anything like that, the motor itself runs about 40 to 50 decibels. The motor runs only at 15-second intervals, about every 10 minutes of the day. So the motor will kick on for about 15 seconds, move the solar panel slightly, and then shut off for 10 minutes, and then kick on for another 15 seconds. Yes, question.
Eric, do they all run simultaneously in the same field, and are they, and how many will there be?
Yeah, good question. Do they all run simultaneously? For the most part, yes. They'll be off maybe slightly based on where they're at east to west in the field, and they're all run off of an algorithm. So They start with the east and then move themselves to the west. But generally speaking, they'll all run about the same time. Motors on a field like this, they're probably only going to be, I believe 4 or 5 total. So the nice thing about this racking system is that one drive motor will connect to a long drive shaft that actually turns all the rows at the same time. Other types of racking structures, you'll need one motor for each row, which would mean 20 to 30 motors. As here, we only have 4 to 5.
You only said 4 or 5 total motors,
Correct, 4 or 5 total motors
and it's 53 decibels at 10 feet away.
at 10 feet away. Yeah,
Any data on 50 feet away, or because we're all hundreds of feet away. right?
correct. Yeah, and I think that's coming up in one of the next slides too. But the nearest home from any of these inverters is about 300 feet. So at 50 feet, or I'm sorry, at 10 feet where this was recorded, it's you know, a library whisper when you're 10 feet away. So as you get further away, 10 feet, 15, 20, you know, further, you're not going to be able to hear this, especially next to Bricker Road where you'll have the traffic running between as well. The fans, I believe that's on the next slide. Yep, next to the inverter. You guys are really great at prompting the next slides. So the inverters, the fans that run, that's really the main noise that you'll see coming out of the inverters. So the inverter, just as a reminder, is what creates the energy from DC to AC. So within that box is the electronics that we saw when it was broken down. Here on the side, you can kind of see some of the fans that are here. And this also was taken by the manufacturer for the inverter. And you can see in front of the inverter, all are about in the 60 decibel range. So a normal conversation, and that's within, again, like the 5 to 10 feet range. And how many fans are there? I believe there's about 4 within each inverter. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, and I think there's one that you can't see right here. So there's about 4 fans per inverter. And that'll be kind of like your laptop that has a fan that runs when it's hot, just keeping the electronics cool inside.
So 4 fans per inverter, how many inverters?
16 inverters total. Yes,
Thank you.
great question. And again, these are only going to operate at peak times during the day. So even when the sun's shining, you know, up until about 10 a.m., they're not going to be running at full capacity. So the fans aren't going to be running at full capacity either. Only between probably 10 and 2 is when you're going to have peak capacity for the inverters and for the motors that are running, and when the electricity is being generated. Any other questions on the inverters?
The inverter's giving you 60 decibels, and then you have the others giving you 40 decibels. You have once again, you don't get loud. If you have 10, you start hearing a lot of noise.
Sure. Yeah, the question, great question. Is the sound from the motors and the sound from the inverters going to be summed together? And instead of 40 and 60, is it going to be 100? Normally, you know, we think about it in the room of people when we talk about a normal conversation, which is what this was rated at 60 decibels. You're going to continue to talk louder, so you're going to increase your voice. The inverters and the motors aren't going to know to talk louder, so it wouldn't be summed together. They would just be in series, or I'm sorry, in parallel, not necessarily in series where it's going to be summed. Is that helpful? Sorry. Anything else on inverters? All right. Here's a slide that gives a reference for the field location and then the view from it. And I think Ivy's team might have helped with this as well. So feel free to jump in if anybody else wants to. But for the most part, we talked about the modules, which will start facing east. So to the right on this screen, down is to the south. And as the sun rotates throughout the sky, the modules will then rotate and face to the left, west. From the backyard, you'll be able to see about 14 feet of the solar array based on the elevation diagram that we have here. And here it's noted that the berm will block the view of the fence along the eastern portion of the array. Only where the fencing will predominantly be visible will the fencing be or wood. So mostly on the south side.
So just a just to quickly touch on this, this is a cross-section image of 3810 Ridge Point Drive view. So this is kind of just to give y'all an idea of the southern berm is kind of that first increase hill that you see if you're looking from the left where you have
Eric,
the,
can you put your pointer on that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
have the,
So people know the
you have the box.
southern berm. where
You have the box to the left, so that's gonna be where the home is and then the red line is the elevation of where the house is built. And then you have Brisher Road following along that line. And then right after Brisher Road, we have the first southern berm, so you can see it's small. And then that valley, I think the blue line will be right where the fence is. So we're going to try and hide the fence behind the southern berm so that it won't be visible to the residents. And then the solar panels will begin in the valley and ideally not visible in the valley area. And then there'll be a 14 foot visibility area of where they will be able to see the solar panels from the sightline of the house. So you can see after the valley, there is the northern berm, and then it's kind of difficult to see, but the original northern berm, which is the second hill, was at an elevation of, I believe, 790, and that's going to be coming down to 770. And then the solar panels will sit on top of that. So it will be lowered a little bit. And then there's another valley on the north side of the north berm where more solar panels will be. So we tried our best to hopefully give you guys a visual of the cross-section imaging with this slide. Any questions? Yep. Mhm.
Where is that? Is that on their base layer or is that on their deck?
So I believe the house is the box, correct, Jody?
I know that, but where is that?
It's at the deck elevation.
Sorry,
It's at the deck elevation. The person
the
is
deck-
standing on the deck elevation.
the deck. Yep, the deck elevation. Yes. Yep. The yellow, so not the green. Yes.
So is the berm at 250 feet vegetation on top of it, or is that the height of the mound itself? the turf?
That's the earth itself. We took off the vegetation for this image. So the vegetation would provide additional screening in addition to the height of the berm.
And we're going to get to the landscaping later in the presentation. If there's any other questions before we, John?
Ivy, are the cross sections, the yellow and green panels, they're going to be tilted. It's kind of, are they turned 90 degrees?
They are turned 90 degrees because that was the best way to represent them on this. We have some visuals with some pictures later in the presentation that show them better in the correct orientation.
They'll actually see those. That's the perception they would see.
Mhm.
But you turned them because we're looking,
Sideways, yeah.
you would actually see the panels themselves.
Mhm. We have some better pictures that are more accurate representation later. Any other questions? Yep, Todd?
I have a question regarding what you're calling the north berm. I call the
Mhm.
spoils pile. If they're being built on top of the berm and you basically have two valleys on either side, how much light is that blocking versus having them more on a flat surface?
Yeah, ideally you have it on a flat surface, but you're not going to get too much shade coming here from this elevation. So it's about 20 feet, maybe from 760 feet to 770, 780 feet. So there's not going to be much shade, if at all, because as the sun rotates from the east to the west in the sky, it's going to be high. And then in the winter, it will be lower. And that's where you'll see some shading, but most of the productive months are going to be in the summer when the sun is higher in the sky.
Okay.
Mhm. Back there, yep. I can speak to the project site. So originally, when this project was brought to Kane County, we sent out a request for proposal to get some more information on if this project would be feasible for Kane County to pursue. And we actually looked at 3 different sites on the Kane County Judicial Center campus. So there's a brand new building that was just built, the multi-use building, or excuse me, multi-purpose building. So we looked at the roof of that building. There's a hill to the northeast of that building. We looked at that hill, and then we looked at the current site that we're looking at today. And we had 8 different solar vendors out to the site, and we had them do a walk around and assess all of those different sites. The roof was not an ideal site for the project because there were a lot of HVAC equipment up there, and there wasn't enough space to put the solar array that we needed the size of to produce the amount of electricity that we would need to be able to pursue the project and have a savings. So the roof was not an ideal spot. And then the hill to the northeast was deemed too far to be able to connect to the ComEd interconnect, which we would have to connect to in order to be able to get the electric connection for the solar field to work. So that's why this site was deemed the most feasible, made the most sense. And then we also had to work with the Kane County Master Planning Committee. So the Kane County Judicial Center has a master plan committee. They have a plan for the next 50 years for the property. And so we worked with them to make sure we were looking at a site that wouldn't interfere with any future development of the judicial center, the parking lots, any of the buildings over there. So this site ended up being the most ideal, even though it wasn't flat land, and there are 2 berms there.
So this was considered non-buildable land.
Yes.
So it was the most economical and really the only feasible land that was on the judicial center property. Yes.
We have a slide further in the presentation under the landscaping that goes through the details of that, and I can explain and answer any questions in regards to it when we get to that one.
Perfect. Thanks, Jody. Yep, John.
2 questions. We understand that the berm's maximum height is 790, and I'm assuming we know it's not flat all along there, but 790 is its maximum height. The red line that shows the north berm here shows it at about 780, the red line. Is that where that's at across from the Cameron's home today? Because otherwise, where's the 790? I'm just curious. Our understanding is this will be taken off about 20 feet. And an open point of discussion is the neighbors have asked for maybe some consideration to take it off further, another 10 feet or so. So if you could explain the red line, and then on the plat itself, there's some light blue dots. Just curious what those are.
The 790 elevation is actually the other cross section that will show further in the presentation that is to the west. So the berm does drop in elevation as it continues to the east. I'm not sure I'm seeing, the blue dots, is that something?
Yeah, just curious what those were.
These blue dots, I believe, are representing the proposed location for the inverters.
The what?
They normally sit in the middle of the array, so.
Okay.
That's
Explains why okay.
Yep.
All right, so just to, the 780 that we're seeing here, the original height of the berm, that's the height of today's berm across from the Cameron's home at 3810. The 790 references the maximum height
To the west.
further to the west, which is more in line with our exit road coming onto Brisher. Yeah. All right, thank you.
We'll have 3 other cross-section images later, and hopefully it'll be more clear then too. Eric, if you want to continue with your presentation,
Yeah.
that would be great, and we'll get to questions later on.
Okay, sounds good. The next slide here shows sample fencing. So you can see a couple options of black aluminum fencing here, and then the landscaping of trees that are proposed here.
I'm just gonna jump in here
Go ahead,
too.
Ivy.
So the picture on the left, I met with some of the residents of Prairie Ridge subdivision, and we were sitting in someone's backyard. And this was a fence that was across the way, so that there's a black aluminum fence on the left-hand side. And this was pointed out by some of the residents that it looked desirable. And then there is kind of a wooden fence on that continues off of that black aluminum fence. So the fence that is going to go around the solar array, there will be a fence around the entire solar array property. And we're planning to have a chain link fence where the fence is not visible to residents. And then where the fence is visible to residents who are on the south side of Brisher Road, we are planning to upgrade the fence so that it is aesthetically pleasing. And we would love your feedback on what kind of fence would be preferable to look at. I know that I've heard from some of the residents that the black aluminum is preferred. And there is a picture of wooden on the right-hand side. And we do still need to get some cost estimates on the fencing to ensure that we're able to do that. But the fencing upgrade is going to be at the county's cost. But we are looking into this, and I know later on we'll address some concerns of the residents as far as fencing conditions. So that's just a fence of what's currently out there. Eric, you can feel free to continue with your presentation. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Ivy.
Yep.
Great explanation. Next is site maintenance. So generally one of the questions that comes up is who's going to maintain the site, make sure it's well cared for and taken care of. That is a responsibility of our company. So we are actually going to own the system, the equipment, the solar system, and we're going to lease the land from the county. So anything inside of the fenced area will be taken care of by GRNE Solar, making sure that the solar field is operating as it's supposed to, taking care of the maintenance of the vegetation inside as well. So we have a vested interest along with Kane County to make sure that this produces energy and saves the county money. So we're going to make sure that it's well cared for and producing as it's supposed to be. Next is just a couple questions that have come up that are normally frequently asked questions. We've covered a lot of these already, but one of the questions that comes up a lot is, will living near a solar field affect the value of my property? A pretty well-known firm, Conan Resnick, did a study on this, and I think the study is in the next couple slides as well, but the general consensus is that it will not negatively impact the value of your property. There's actually evidence to show that it might actually help the value of your property. Do solar panels contain harmful chemicals? We showed the dissection of the solar panel earlier and what's inside of it. So there's nothing inside that would be harmful to the environment or harmful if it was exposed. So we covered that one earlier. Do solar panels create glare? That's actually the opposite of what solar panels are designed to do. As the sunlight hits the solar panels, the solar panel is designed to absorb that light, create energy from it, as opposed to reflect that light. Do solar panels leak radiation? No, as you saw, everything's covered in the tempered glass. Therefore, there's nothing that comes out of the solar panel itself. Everything is confined within that aluminum frame and the tempered glass, both on the front and the back. Do solar panels produce electromagnetic radiation? Not any more than a TV or a refrigerator. The levels are actually lower than those normal household devices. Here's the, yes, question.
Say normal in those devices, is that for a single panel or is that for a field?
Yeah, that's for the whole field, correct. Yeah. So obviously the question was about the electromagnetic radiation. So the entire field would produce less electromagnetic radiation than would be equivalent to TVs or refrigerators that are in your normal home.
Are you saying equivalent to one TV? About 4,800.
Yeah, that was the question. It was, is it one solar panel equivalent to one refrigerator? And the answer is that it's the actual entire field compared to one refrigerator. Correct. Yeah, good question. Anything else? Sounds good. This is the property value report that was put on by Cohen and Resnick. So it's a third-party source. This took an analysis of several different solar fields throughout the Midwest, in Illinois and Indiana, and typical property values. This is not a residential solar system where you put it on your home and then that increases your property value. This is a large solar field adjacent or next to a neighborhood, and that's the study that was done here. You can see the property value differences in this column here. So as much as a 7% increase to property values and -3%, but the average of it is actually about a 2% property value increase for homes that are next to a solar field.
How much of that was attributable just to solar panels and how much of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did not produce this report. It was produced by the law firm Cohen and Resnick. They take into account all economic factors that goes into this. The full report, I believe, Ivy and Mavis have, if you'd like to view the full report. But it is specific study to categorize what the value of the solar field next to a neighborhood is to the property value.
I just don't think this can, you can infer from this that solar field is the cost.
Yeah, I think the main point is that the solar field is not negatively impacting the property values. So whether it increases or
We don't know what they would have been at the top. Maybe the top number would have been 14.
I'm happy to share those reports that Eric sent to me. I believe they're both counties in Illinois. So again, the main takeaway from both of those studies was that there was no negative impact in property values.
We don't know what it would have been without.
I can take a closer look at the studies and see what kind of other factors they take into account. Yep.
Yes.
Were the solar farms connected to the properties that were evaluated?
It was very, and the full report will have more details on that, but it was very similar to the situation where it's either directly across from a road or right next to the neighborhood itself. It's large solar fields that are this size or larger that are right next to a neighborhood where families live.
By connected, we don't mean geographically, I mean electrically. Is that farm generating electricity for those homes?
Got it. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. The answer to that is a no. It's not connected to make power for those homes. I believe most of these are connected directly to the utility grid. So the power that's produced from that solar field is going to the utility grid to the benefit of the utility, not the neighborhood that it's next to. Yeah.
I can just say something about the property value.
Sure.
You're going to refer to studies about that. But if you just step back and look at this, would you think that your home would appreciate the value being next to a huge, like, it makes sense. But these can say things, but I just like.
Okay. Thanks for the comment.
We did do, Mavis and I did do a little bit more research and looking into this, and there weren't a lot of studies that we saw just with a quick Google search. But I believe some of the sources did come up with similar responses. I can put together a more formal report if that would be something that would be of interest.
Yes.
I'm assuming the rectangular box in the
Would you
second
turn
and
on
third
your mic?
columns from the right is because it's the distance and proximity from the panels to the houses are
Please turn on
distances.
your mic, since you
Oh, I didn't know that was working. So the rectangular box right there, I'm assuming that's rectangle box because that's probably closest to distance from the field to our homes.
Yes, I believe so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might, we'll pass this around because I can't hear what people are saying
Okay.
in the audience.
You want me to pass it around?
Well, we can
Any,
look like
any
we
other
can just-
questions?
Can hang on to it and pass it around or somebody, or I can pass it around. Sure, thank you. It's on.
Well, we put one on each side of the room and you guys can pass it about.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions, by the way. All right, we'll keep moving on. Thank you. This is just a slide representing some of the environmental agencies that either have solar or are a proponent of solar. So you can see on here that it's widely accepted by a lot of the entities that are watchdogs for the earth and for the well-being of humans as well. So you can see Sierra Club, Department of Energy, the Nature Conservatory, all either have solar or advocates for solar, including the EPA campus. This is very similar size solar field. So the solar field here at the EPA campus is 1.5 megawatts. It's about 5,000 solar panels. The one at King County here is a little bit over 2 megawatts. So it's roughly similar in size. But this is a solar field that's been installed for a while now. It produces about half of the electrical need for the EPA campus in New Jersey. This is the last slide for me, I believe, and happy to again, continue to answer questions. But a few of the main things that we covered, solar inverters, which are the box that creates the energy from DC to AC, and the racking motors will be located at least more than 300 feet from the nearest home. The inverters and the racking motors will operate only during the day when the sun is shining. The emitted sound from the system will be drowned out by the distance, and then obviously we have some landscaping and fencing included as well. Solar field will be maintained by GRE Solar. We went over the property study showing no adverse impact. Environmental groups we talked about as well. We're very excited to help save the county about $4 or $5 million over the course of this project. And again, at $0 capital cost to the county and to the taxpayers, only savings and no capital cost. A couple of the next steps for if you'd like to follow along with this project. Ivy, do you want to speak to those?
Yeah, I can jump in. So just some next steps in the timeline for this project. So we have this meeting tonight to talk to the Homeowners Association Prairie Ridge Subdivision. On Wednesday, we're going to have an additional Energy and Environment Committee meeting to talk more to this project. There will be a different presentation. So feel free to join us for that. That will be on this Wednesday at 9 a.m. in this room. And you can also attend via Zoom. There will also be a recording of that meeting on YouTube. And then after that meeting, depending on the questions that are answered during that meeting, this project will go to the executive committee meeting, which will be Wednesday, September 8th at 9 a.m. in this room. And then the county board meeting, which will be Tuesday, September 14th at 9:45 a.m. So that is the timeline for this project. Yep. Do we want to do questions? Go ahead. Yep.
I don't know if this is on. So Eric, could you speak to the company that's providing the solar panels for you? What company are you?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of the companies that manufacture solar panels are from outside of the US.
You mean China?
Mostly Vietnam and Korea.
Which ones where are you buying these from?
Yeah, sorry, I'll get to the point. The ones that we're buying are from Canada.
From where?
Canada.
Canada.
In North America.
Do you know who produces the silicone for those?
Silicon most likely will come from overseas. All of the silicon does for the solar panels. It is then packaged.
Is it like 80% from China?
Actually, most of it is from the Malaysia, Vietnam, and Korea.
Okay. Okay. So can you like guarantee that none of this is coming from China? As I think probably you know, and probably many people in here know that just 3 days ago, our Customs and Border Patrol are stopping imports of silicon and solar panel materials from China because of human rights and forced labor issues. I like that you spoke to the fact that you put up on the screen the companies that endorse the use of solar to save the earth and save people. But this is very important to me right now that it's a huge issue that, you know, the Biden administration is just, right? I mean, you could speak to this more than probably than I can, but they've
Yeah.
restricted exports from almost all of the 5 largest companies in China that produce silicone that's going into solar panels. But I'd like to have a guarantee that what's going to be across from my home and my grandchildren are going to look at was not, you know, sourced in any way that touched forced labor and human rights issues. I mean, can you guarantee that to us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is a very hot topic in the solar industry right now. And you're spot on. Just to broadly speak to it, there is a lot of forced labor and human rights issues with the production of solar panels in China right now with some of the manufacturers. It's been going on for about a month or so, but they've tightened the restrictions as well, not letting solar panels come into the US, getting stopped at the border. I can guarantee on this project, we will not use any of that. And I can guarantee that our company will never use anything that comes from a manufacturer that is doing that to produce solar panels. And you can't even get that in the US anymore because it's been cut off. And that's why we only use the reputable companies that are still doing things the right way to make sure that the products that are produced and used are of the highest integrity.
You can't get it in the US, but a Canadian manufacturer could import because they don't have a ban currently on imports of silicon from, you know, the Chinese manufacturers, mainly Hoshine, who's producing most of this. So, I mean, I think that's something that this board should expect to be questioned publicly. I think when it's very much in the news right now, and when this board endorses putting solar fields, we should be prepared to answer the question: is it any way tied to forced labor and what's going on in China?
Thank you very much for bringing that issue to us.
Yeah, and emphatically, the answer is no, but that it is a very great question.
And in Canada, it is also not allowed?
They've targeted it to the specific manufacturers that are using the solar materials that are coming from that part of China. So if that part of China is contacted with a company like Canadian Solar or Tailsun or Yingli, that manufacturer has been reprimanded, and those are not allowed to enter the US at this time.
Is that a good answer for you?
I work in compliance, so I would be looking for sanctions reviews to make sure that his company has conducted all the appropriate reviews of the provider. It's all the way down. It's not just who is building, who he's buying the solar panel from. It's the material inside that solar panel.
It's the whole supply chain.
Absolutely. And it's his entire supply chain that should be vetted to ensure, because as a purchaser, as a partner that you're getting ready to enter in, you are partnering and your name is associated with that too. So it's a bunch of due diligence that needs to happen to make sure that, you know, what we're putting in our neighborhood represents the values that we all have. And that's not forced labor in any man.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Mike, please. Oh, good.
What's the lifespan of your panels?
Yeah, sure. What's the lifespan of the panels? The manufacturer warranty that's standard in the industry is 25 years. Typically, the solar panels will continue to produce 30 to 40 years. So that is one of the main things of identifying the location that we have, is that there's not an intended use for it for a very long period of time. So when this field goes in, the general accepted lifespan is at least 25 years, probably closer to 30 or 40. And there will be some degradation year over year with the modules, but there's 85% performance guarantee that's included with this project, so that the solar field will always produce at a minimum 85% of what it's estimated to.
And what happens when you have after 25 years?
There's some specific clauses in the contract for Kane County. They can either renew the lease and extend the lease term, take over the field, or have it removed. Those are the main 3 options.
And by removal, whose cost?
That is the cost of GRNE Solar. Our cost, the company that installed it.
And if you're not around in the business in 25 years, whose cost is it?
Whoever is taking the payments of the field at that time. So if GRNE Solar is not around anymore And gentleman's company here takes over and is collecting the payments from Kane County on the solar field, then his company then would accept the obligation to remove and decommission the system at the end.
My understanding for a field that size, it would be approximately 2.5 million to do the decompensation. Am I saying the term right?
Decommissioning.
Decommissioning.
That's a much higher estimate than what I think I've seen in the industry, probably closer to 100 to 200,000. Because you're just taking the steel and aluminum off and separating the materials and then taking it for recycling.
There's underground.
Underground, they would just pull out, or have bobcats to dig out and then regrade.
Been in business 10 years.
Yes, correct. No, because they are 25 years usually the standard. Yeah. That's correct.
And I guess this is when studies come in, because when I Googled it, it said 2.5 million. So you can kind of get figures to support whichever side you're on with a lot of things.
Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, what part of the solar panel is recyclable today?
Mostly the steel and aluminum racking, and then the aluminum frame that is around the solar panel itself, and then the copper that's in the wire. Those are usually what people would see recyclable value from.
And the rest of it goes to landfill? Is that, or does it
Correct.
get buried?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Are there any more questions? Yep.
Just a quick, what is the size of each panel?
The size is about 3¼ feet wide and 6½ feet tall.
So is the one in the back of the room representative of the panels that will be, you're proposing on this site?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can see an example of it in the back of the room. Yes.
Eric, a couple questions. Early on in the presentation, you talked about using the energy from a field, and then if there's excess, it gets returned to the grid. Do you anticipate that there'll be some energy that's returned to the grid in the off-peak hours from this particular project?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for this facility, all of the energy that's being produced, there's actually 3 separate tie-ins to around the Kane County campus. But the 3 tie-ins will then offset the loads for those specific electrical infrastructure that's there. There's probably, and Arnie might be able to speak to this more because he's the energy broker for the county, but there's probably a very minimal chance that there's actually going to be excess production and pushback, a small percentage, not the majority of the time. We've designed the system to be able to maximize the savings for the county. Any excess, if it's off peak or on a weekend when there's not a lot of folks in the office,
Right.
then that could be the potential of when it would be pushed back to the grid.
Okay.
But our jail is 24/7.
Yeah, we did an extensive study, about 12 to 15% of the power, and it really will be in April, May, and then the fall months. There'll be about 10 to 15 over the whole year that'll get pushed back to the grid. But the way it works is it'll come back, at 2 in the morning when there's no solar being produced. But it's really on some of the collar months where the air conditioners shut off. There will be a few hours in those days, but not very much will be sent back on this field design.
Mr. Wallace has a question, please.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because I thought that part of the reason why we were choosing the site right where it was at, as opposed to elsewhere, is because it wasn't connected to the grid. It was actually just being used to power these specific buildings.
It is connected directly to these buildings. That's correct.
Okay.
So the power that's produced from the solar field will power the lights in this building first. If there's so much energy being produced that you don't need that much energy here, that's when it will be pushed back to the electrical grid. It's the same interconnection at the utility room here in the building.
So in theory, if the solar farm was located somewhere else, and electricity was being produced and actually just being pushed onto the grid, resulting in income to the county, that potentially could be used to offset the cost of power otherwise to these buildings, correct?
It could be.
Okay.
The challenge of that is when you do that, let's say you put a solar field out in the middle of nowhere, it's directly connected to ComEd. The rate that they'll pay you for that energy is substantially less than what you would benefit from offsetting your current load here. So you're going to get double or triple the value of offsetting your current load as opposed to getting paid from ComEd.
So when you're supplying energy into the grid, you're not getting the same amount as what you're paying to get energy from the grid.
That's correct. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question.
We need to move along if that's okay. Ivy has some more presentations. And what do we do with questions in the chat, Ivy? Can we answer those as we go?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a quick presentation and then maybe we'll answer questions after, just so because we do have public comment after the Q&A. But feel free to put questions in the chat and I will read those aloud after my presentation. Thank you so much to Eric and to everybody who was answering questions. So I'm going to give a quick presentation on the proposed landscaping plan outline and the homeowners association requests and recommendations to our resolution. So Kane County Department of Environment staff have been working in partnership with White and Company. White and Company is the landscaping architect that the Kane County Judicial Center and our building management team has been working with. So we partnered with them to bring you this landscaping plan outline. And the landscaping outline is going to be Kane County responsibility, not GR&E's responsibility for this project. So here we have another cross-section image. So these images were drawn up by White and Company. So actually there was a Steve Morgan, I believe, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, put in the chat that they live at 3820 Ridge Point, and they asked a question about the spoil hill across from their home being reduced. So this is your address, Steve, 3820 Ridge Point Drive View. So here we have in the up here in the oh, you can only see the pointer if you're in the room. I apologize. So this view up here, so this is going to be where you will see the elevation of the 790 of the current northern berm. So this is where the berm is the highest on the property. And then our recommendations that were provided by White and Company after looking at this cross section in terms of recommending landscaping to block the view of the solar panels. Their first recommendation was to expand the southern berm by 4 to 5 feet. So at the bottom, the number 1, you can see they've kind of expanded it a little bit just to provide a little bit of cushion. So from 3820 Ridge Point Drive View, the southern berm does taper off. So it kind of goes a little bit flatter and it's not the same from other viewpoints in the Prairie Ridge subdivision. So what they're recommending is that we build that up a little bit to add a little bit more to that southern berm, and then add evergreen trees to the south face of the southern berm. You can see those depicted there. Add shade trees to the south of Busher Road, and then lower the northern berm to 770 feet. So you can see that the red line is where the berm is currently at, and then that black dotted line is where it will be kind of leveled off to. They're going to push the soil and kind of flatten it and push it out. So that's our first cross section. We have another cross section, 3810 Ridge Point Drive View. And you can see how the picture in the right-hand side changes. So there's a red line. Hopefully you guys can see that. That's the viewpoint of the third house from Ridge Point Drive View, the turn in off of Brisher Road. So this cross-section recommendation is to add evergreen trees to the south face of the southern berm, add shade trees to the south of Brisher Road, and then to lower the northern berm by 770 feet. To 700, yes, sorry, I apologize, to 770 feet. And you can see that that's depicted by the black dotted line. And then we have the last cross-section image, which is going to be 3802 Ridge Point Drive view. So on this property viewpoint, the northern berm is very low in elevation. So the only recommendations that they had were to add evergreen trees to the south of the southern berm and add shade trees to the south of Brisher Road. So you can see that there are different landscaping recommendations based on different viewpoints within Prairie Ridge subdivision. So these are just some example drawings that we wanted to share with you all today. So this is the proposed landscaping overview plan that they created for us, and this is an overview. So this includes those cross-section images and recommendations that I just showed. This is an overview site, so looking over on the property and also the homes across the street. So we've been quoted an estimated cost to the county at $50,000 for this landscaping plan. It is a proposed plan, and we are currently still working with White and Company on this plan. So you can see in this image, there are some trees there are the shade trees on the south of Brisher Road. There's 12 trees, and they're the light green, and then there are darker shades of green trees on the north of Brisher Road, and there are 20 of those. So those are the evergreen.
You want to take a question, Ivy?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Question?
Question?
Yeah, how big are those trees gonna be when they get planted? Or will we wait 25 years to their growth?
So the planting, I have that information right here. Let me find my notes. Okay, so I believe, hang on one second.
I mean, obviously, they're not to scale on the pictures.
Yeah, no, they're not to scale. I have that information. One moment. Okay, so the planting size. So the evergreens, which are the darker shades of trees, are going to be at their planting size, 10 to 12 feet in height. They're in that range. And then they recommend planting them no closer than 20 feet on center so that they'll be able to reach their full mature size. They've recommended evergreen trees of the types of evergreen trees are Norway or Colorado spruce, and their potential mature height would be 40 to 60 feet in height and 25 feet wide. And then the shaded trees they've recommended are swamp white oak, shingle oak, and chinkapin oak. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I'm not. And the mature size, the planting size of those trees will be the same 10 to 12 feet in height when they are first planted, and then their full mature potential growth would be 45 to 60 feet in height and 50 feet in width. And then according to the landscaping architect that we're working with, they estimated 20 plus years for the trees to fully mature, depending on the weather, rain, and anything else. Here we have a picture of the landscaping plan with the solar array, just so you can get an idea of where those trees will go in accordance with the solar field. Yep, go ahead.
Is there a reason you didn't take the trees all the way down to the edge of our properties? You know, I actually happen to live in that corner house at the very end. Is there a reason why the landscaping plan kind of stops minus the last?
I
two
think there's a
homes?
lot of trees in that area.
On the right-hand side or the left-hand side?
On the right-hand side, the corner house, you were at my home.
So based on what the landscaping architects looked at, there were already trees and screening on the south side of Bridger Road and also on the north side of Bridger Road. What we wanted to do with the landscaping plan is to block the view of residents who are going to have a direct sight line to the solar panel. So those that live directly across from and have that view in their backyard.
Well, yeah, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. I just think the last couple of houses here also are directly across from the solar panel. I mean,
We can definitely
yeah.
take a look and send that over to our landscaping architect.
there's a reason why.
For the most part, we were just looking, we sent the plan to the landscaping architects and told them to create this plan based on the current screening that's already there and to kind of do some infill. So where there were gaps, and the majority of the gaps are on that eastern side to the left, which is where the berm is the highest. So we wanted to make sure we were putting screening there. But thank you for that note. We'll take that into account. Yep.
My question is about the trees on the south side of Brisher. I
Mhm.
don't know if the landscape architects walked this property before they drew this up or not, because there are trees in the parkway. So between the bike path and Brisher Road today, but
Mhm.
not enough to screen it. I just don't know how these 10, 12 trees that you have in the light green
Mhm.
weave in or fit into the current landscaping.
That's a great question. It is difficult to see in this image, and I apologize for that. There are currently trees that are planted on the north side of that bike path. So the landscape architects put infill of the trees in this plan to go in between where those trees on the north side of the bike path are. So the trees that we will potentially be planting will be in between where the trees currently are. And the next slide that I have, so this is a picture that was sent in by our residents, one of their backyards. So the picture on the left-hand side was created by White and Company. It is a 3D rendering of what the solar project will look like with panels and also with landscaping. And then the right picture was created by our IT department. It is also a 3D rendering of what the solar project will look like, but that is the view without any of the landscaping that we just talked about. So you can compare those side by side. I know that this is something that the residents requested time and time again. So we wanted to share these with you all today. And again, these are pictures that were created. So they might not necessarily look like that when the project is done. But this is what we are visualizing as of right now for the project to look like.
I guess that's the scary part to me, is that what happens when we go ahead with this project and then we really can't find a way to make a screen? Because if you came out in person and looked at this, I think it looks very different than a photograph. And I just don't personally see how it can be landscaped to hide the majority of this project. So what happens at that point? You know, we signed the contract, we've installed the solar panels, and now we disenfranchised a bunch of homeowners for this project because we couldn't figure out a way to make this look okay before we even signed a contract.
So this is why we did create the landscaping plan, because this was a request of the residents. The landscaping plan is what the county has committed to offering to the residents. This will be at the cost to the county. We are able to work with our landscaping architect in creating a different plan if that is of interest. But this is what we're able to offer in the current point in time. Yep, in the back. Do you have the microphone? Yep, perfect. Thank
You
you.
referenced the fencing
Mhm.
and how possibly this black or this wooden fence. In the photo you showed, it seemed like maybe the fencing would be on the outside or closer to Britcher, and that the landscaping that you're proposing is inside. Why did we do that? Why wouldn't maybe the fencing?
So the landscaping is actually going to go on the outside of
It
the
is, okay.
fencing. So let me go back to, let's see it. Okay, so the landscaping, the number 2 tree will be on the side of the south side of Brisher Road. And then the evergreen trees, which is number 1, will be on the north side of Brisher Road. And then the fence will be kind of there, if that makes sense. I apologize that we didn't put it on the map, but ideally we're gonna hide the fence right behind the north side of the southern berm so that it is not in the sight line of the homes across the street.
Okay, I couldn't tell by the prior.
Yeah, I apologize. And ideally, the fence will not be seen from across the street. Yep.
This-
Oh, do you have
I'm
another
sorry, I
question?
have
Go
one more
ahead.
Question. I guess when I look at the landscaping, I feel like.
A little closer, please.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Mhm.
I feel like the landscaping is not being thought through cohesively for this project. And I really think it should be considered that it does go all the way down and appears to be thought through a little more versus just doing the minimum, which leads me to the trees that are on the south side that are existing, which I think they're pin oaks that have acorns. And I don't know who maintains all of that. I'm sorry, I am new to the neighborhood. But that's going to be a nightmare of people trying to ride their bike and all these acorns falling on their heads at some point. So I just think we need to give some consideration to what type and species of tree is used to be not only pleasant looking, does the job in terms of the screening, but long-term makes the most sense for the property. And that walkway that's there, a lot of kids ride their bikes there too, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's a great point. Thank you. Yep.
And the first question is, will there be money set aside in case the landscaping isn't successful?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
No, if it doesn't work, if the landscaping really didn't do a bit of hiding what we're gonna hide,
So
is there gonna be a second plan, or who's responsible then? Because what we're saying now is it should be okay, but we don't know.
Yep, so we're currently working with the landscaping architect. These were just the initial drawings that we had them create. We've just worked out a plan with them. So we haven't gone into discussion in regarding to what happens if the trees, something happens to the trees, and they don't end up in their full mature growth. But that is an excellent point.
And the second is who's gonna maintain the trees on the south side of Britcher?
So the south side of Britcher, I believe that will be maintained by the city of Geneva. So Mavis and I did share all of these drawings with Mayor Burns, and he is on board with these landscaping plans. He's willing to work with us and take responsibility to maintain those trees after we plant them. So the city of Geneva will be responsible for those trees.
And the
maintenance.
guaranteed of the life if they die, or they're 2 years, 3 years?
When we typically bid landscaping work, we have a guarantee on the trees for a certain period of time, which is usually several years. And so we'll include that in the bid quotations that we receive for the landscaping to include a warranty period for those trees.
Thanks, Jody.
Thanks, Jody.
Yep.
Well, I want to publicly, I want this on record, to thank you for coming to our residences last week and viewing with your eyes. Because it's a lot different when you're there
Mhm.
as opposed to looking at these pictures, which is Sherilyn's, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, one of her big concerns, and it's one of my big concerns too. My question, White, the landscaping architect, did they come out and do an on-site view of this?
Nope. So we sent them the cross-section images and they have the GIS maps, I believe.
Well,
Jody can speak to.
I just
look.
think it's very disappointing that they wouldn't come out and view this on site with their own eyes instead of a cross-section or whatever you presented them with.
They will be field verifying. We did give them all the photos from the residents' balconies that they wouldn't have had access to. And the Google Earth Street View images are very accurate through that area. They will be verifying everything in the field before we finalize the designs with them.
Thank you though for that feedback. Yep.
I mean, I'm just looking at these pictures here and it looks like the panels aren't even facing the right direction from what they will be when they're installed.
So the panels are gonna be east to west.
Right.
And then they're gonna
But-
turn.
But those panels look like north to south. Just, that's my vision. Maybe Eric can confirm that or not. Like the picture on the left, it looks like those panels are more oriented north-south as opposed to east-west.
This is a little more of an artist's rendering, just to give a general point of view. This is not an engineer's rendering, so.
I'm just saying it affects us and I'd like to see it in real time.
I guess I'd like to say that I submitted a picture for the public comment to see later of a solar field proposal in DeKalb. And the solar company has provided a picture as clear as this of exactly what it will look like. And that's what I was hoping to see from the solar company or somebody because well, I mean, how can you proceed with something with so many, we think this will happen? We're not sure. None of us even know what the solar panels are going to look like. I mean, we have one in the back of the room, but have we talked about how elevated that's going to be off the ground? I mean, you'll see a picture of what was sent on the postcard to us, which is not a pleasant view at all. And I don't see a way to landscape around this because of the elevation of the land. It's not a flat field. You can't just put trees around it. I don't see a way to do that. And I don't feel confident from what I'm hearing.
Yep, thank you, Sherilyn, and we hear your concerns, and this is why we're having the meeting today to get your feedback and record all the concerns, and we're trying our absolute best to answer every question that you have. But this is what we were able to provide today. I can, if these images are not, I can try and get different images, but these are what we have as of right now. John, do you have a question?
A couple. Going back to Bob's question about just filling the gaps and getting the right perspective. Can you, and I think we could make this available, can the landscaper, when they come out to field view this site, can we coordinate and get them access to various decks? Because when you reference Google Maps might be accurate in the area, but as we all saw from the decks and the elevation that they are at, that's a very different view of the solar field than from the road. So you get, the sight line is dramatically different. So having that architect go to every deck or every other deck, and we can try to work and get access for that, that would pay big dividends in the actual placement of the trees and maybe the types of trees. So.
Yeah, sure. We're happy to work with you guys. So Kane County and myself, I'm going to be working with the landscape architect directly. I've been working with all of you, so we can definitely coordinate. That's what we were trying to do with these pictures. We wanted to send them something from a deck view, and that's what they were able to create. But we can definitely work to have them visit all of the decks when they do this site assessment.
Okay, a couple more questions. Why not all spruces versus the pin oaks, which will be absent of leaves for 5 or 6 months a year? So if you did all spruces on both sides of the road, and that was my next question is, I'm assuming that there's some trees on the south side because having too many trees on the north side might affect the access to sun for some of the panels as the growth continues. So you need to put some on the south side to affect the view line in certain spots. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I will have to ask the landscaping architect. No.
I mean, obviously, if you didn't have to do an agreement with the city of Geneva and you could put everything on county property, then the maintenance is not an issue or anything else. And you get greater benefit in the sightlines the farther away you put your trees. So if you could fill all the gaps with spruces on the south edge of the berm, of the south berm, that provides a greater or a more immediate impact to the homeowner in blocking these views than it does in placing them on the near side, which just has more of an effect of blocking, frankly, the road pavement than it does the solar fields because of the height of the trees at planting and the time to grow. So just a comment.
So your comment is that you think it'd be better on the north side of Bridger than
Yeah,
the
when
south
we
side?
walked the site, it sure felt like, and we painstakingly looked at the different perspectives from the decks and the placement of the trees, that you gain tremendous, I mean, multiple levels of improved sight lines with trees. The farther away they are, your sight line goes up. So if you can put those on the north side of the road, maybe it's the south side of the berm to have minimal impact on the solar panel access to sun. But I just don't know why they're needed on the south side of the road. And it eliminates the City of Geneva agreement. It eliminates finger pointing on who's maintaining them and if a warranty, if they get killed by salt or if there's a warranty issue or whatever. It seems a lot cleaner if it can be done on your site. But Mr. Peterman may have a view on how many trees and how tall they grow may affect the solar field's access to sun. And obviously it's productivity and efficacy. So, and one of my questions was, has this been run by GRNE just to see if they approve of the ultimate heights of the landscaping and the placement of the trees?
Yes, I just sent these over to Eric. We just got these images last Friday, so we were scrambling to put them together in the presentation for today. But yes, we are going to be working with GRNE to make sure that the landscaping plan is going to work out with the rest of the solar field. And John, I can ask the landscaping architect directly about those questions. I apologize. We asked them to be at the meeting today, but they could not make it. So I will address those concerns with them and then I can get back to you.
Sure. And we, again, I think between those of us in this room, we can coordinate access for you and them whenever they want it.
I think Eric wants to make a comment. Eric, you got the mic?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're working together with IAB and we'll make sure that there's a plan in place that's win-win-win for all parties. So thank you for your concern for the production of the solar panels, but we want to make sure that it doesn't impact the savings to the county and it achieves the goal of making sure that the screening is adequate to meet the concerns of the residents as well.
Yep. If we can wrap up questions quickly, I do still have a few more slides and we also need to get to public comment and the questions in the chat. So if we can wrap up questions quickly. Yep, go ahead back there.
Yep. Related, if the landscape architects could include in future drawings the original plant height of the tree and then maybe superimpose 5-year, 10-year, so forth, so that we can again have perspective that has meaningful, more meaningful information, because we don't know what their perspective is on what they've shown.
Yep. I can ask the landscaping architects about that. Thank you. Yep.
Just a couple of questions. So, and maybe I missed it somewhere in the literature, but how much is this total project costing? And one of the slides said that it's of no cost to the county. Then who is paying for it?
So the solar project, what the solar panels that we're going to be putting on the field there's no cost to the county to do that. The cost to put in the trees, the landscaping plan is an additional.
Okay, got it. I got that. But so who's paying to put the panels in?
GRNE, Eric.
Why are you doing that?
It's a good question. So we will pay for the infrastructure of the solar field, and then the county pays us for the energy that's created, just like ComEd pays for the grid infrastructure that goes in, and then you pay the monthly bill for the energy that you use.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
But so how much will that be? Well, I mean, what
Yeah.
kind of money are we talking here?
The total investment for this product is about $4 or $5 million.
Okay.
And, and the county will, over the 25 years that the system is in operation, we will save $198,000 every year on our electric bills, because once Eric gets the system in place, the amount of energy that we have to, the price that we pay for our electricity is less, and we pay less fees in transmission and that's on your ComEd bill. So over the 25 years, the taxpayers of Kane County will save $5 million with this system.
Okay, thank you.
The federal tax credit for solar right now is 26%. So 26% of the product cost will be a tax credit. It would be 26% of $4 or $5 million.
About $1 million.
About $1 million.
All right. If there are no, do you have any other questions? Can I continue? All right, great.
I just Ivy, just going back to White doing an on-site survey, because looking at those two pictures really doesn't give the elevation difference of where our decks are looking down to where the solar panels will be. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. All right. This is another, this is just a panoramic picture. Our IT department created this picture, another 3D rendering. I believe this was a panoramic picture taken from the same deck. I'll leave it up for a second, just so y'all can see.
That's an as is current.
Sorry. Yep. That is without the trees. So that's as is right now. I took this last Monday. Okay. Yep.
Height of the south berm to hide some of the panels there. And the reason we couldn't do that was because it was going to affect how much sunlight the solar panels were going to get. So now we're talking about putting lots of trees there that might even be higher than what the berm would have been. And we're not sure that's not going to affect how much sun the panels get to the panels. And when are we going to find out that that plan isn't going to work?
I have a couple of comments on that. We do have some existing utilities through that corridor. And so the height of the berm is constricted by the right-of-way of Britcher Road and our utilities on our site. We are increasing that elevation of that berm through the western section to about 4 to 5 feet. The setback from our zoning, from our property line is 35 feet to the north for the nearest panel. And so based on the current trees that are in that corridor, the additional landscaping trees would not further shade any area that's for the solar panels, if that helps.
But I guess that just brings up the question, if the trees don't hinder the solar panels operations, why couldn't the soils pile have been moved to make it level? Because that was the pushback on that suggestion all along.
I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So just quickly, before I touch on that, I have a whole slide on that. I've been in contact with John Mead, and he sent me a memo earlier last week with some formal conditions from Prairie Ridge Subdivision Homeowners Association. I can send anyone the memo if they have not already seen it. But these were the three requests, and I had to paraphrase them to get them all on one slide. But the first request was that the existing berm be reduced in height to 30 feet. So at an elevation of 760, so that the solar panels, when at their most high position, do not exceed 770 feet. The second request was that the fencing be placed behind the berm at a level where the fence cannot be visible from the homes across the street. And then where it is visible, we upgrade the fencing to make it more aesthetically pleasing. And then the last request was that the county install and maintain landscaping along the north side of Brisher Road with fast-growing evergreen or conifer trees spaced no more than 10 feet apart. So that upon 5 years growth, the views of the solar panels from residents across the road shall be eliminated or almost eliminated. So the fencing request, as I spoke to earlier, the county is on board with trying to eliminate the view of the fencing if possible by placing it on the north side of the southern berm, and then in areas where it will be visible, upgrading the fencing to the preferability of the residents that will have that view, and also depending on the cost of that and whether the county is able to do that. And then the third request, installing landscaping. Like I spoke to, we have a landscaping plan in the works. The county has committed $50,000 as an estimate as of right now to planting all of those trees and to provide screening to block some of the view of that solar project. But again, the view will not be eliminated by those trees fully. And then I'm going to speak to the first request in this slide. So I know that this has been a request of the residents. So we looked into lowering the berm from 15 feet to 30 feet. So the volume that we would
Ivy, do you want me to just jump in here?
Sure, go ahead, Jody. Thank you.
Our Department of Environmental and Water Resources actually runs a lot of project management for large earth moving projects as well. And so we do have a resource within our office of bid tabs from various projects for earth moving. And so we were able in this instance at the residents' request to run the volume calculations and utilize our most recent bids for very similar projects to run the numbers to actually reduce the berm to 760. In total, the volume that we would need to remove from that hill would be 29,000 cubic yards of material moving. Our most recent, very close scope-wise project was the cross-country course that we utilized significant earth moving of the same type of in volume. We ended up with a bid price of approximately $18 a cubic yard. In addition to that, the contractor would need to construct a haul road and also restore the site once that's complete. So if we run those numbers, if we were to try to relocate that spoil on site, we'd be looking at a cost of over $500,000. But in speaking with our building management, they do not have room on the site to relocate all 30,000 cubic yards of material that would need to be moved. It would be less than 5,000 cubic yards that they could utilize on site. So in that case, we would be likely hauling, loading and hauling about 3,000 trucks to move that material off of the site and dispose of it at a CCDD facility. The trucking cost and the loading cost would be $7 plus the $65 trucking and offloading at a CCDD facility. And that cost in total would be about $2 million. So if we could lose some of the material on site with our building management department, we would be likely looking at a cost of $1 million to $1.5 million to reduce that berm to 760.
And then after we reviewed this information, at this time, we don't believe it is practical to spend that amount of King County's taxpayers' dollars to lower the berm to that level.
So I guess my question on that, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Is why were these costs not factored into the feasibility studies for this project?
So originally, when we looked at the project site, the reason that we were going to take down the berm in the first place was just to level, to create a level surface to mount the solar panels. So that was the only reason we were going to take down the berm.
Okay, so
And that
really,
cost was
there was no
included- sorry.
consideration to the aesthetics then of the property.
No. Jody, do you have?
The GRNE numbers had the amount of lowering it, the first 10 to 15 feet. However, we did not consider as part of the feasibility of the project, lowering it to 760.
Ivy, so the cost to lower it 10 to 15 feet to the maximum height of, maximum elevation of 770, that's being borne by GRNE as part of its project costs?
Yes.
Okay.
I would just note that's a significantly smaller volume because the highest portion of the hill is.
Understood, understood. Yep.
Smaller.
Absolutely. And for the record, I probably should say, I'm not representing either homeowners association. While both homeowners associations are engaged in this,
Okay.
it's really the most impacted residents that are working on this, and I just happen to be to have some concern for them and are helping them work through this process. So I don't represent the HOAs, but the HOAs are fully aware of it. So I was, it's really the residents' concerns, not the HOAs specifically or formally. So
Okay.
I guess as you work through this and as we work through fencing concerns and landscaping concerns, and as those change, there could be some thought, some consideration given even by the folks at GRNE as to whether or not their construction budget could bear any additional cost to lower it some level, whether that's instead of 10 feet, 5 feet, or instead of 5 feet, 4 feet. I don't know what the magic number is, but any lowering of the berm helps eliminate additional screening needed by fencing or landscaping and helps move residents' concerns and reduce their concerns and move them to being more supportive, I would think. So there could be, and there's no answer right now that it's needed, but that's something that Eric Peterman can consider. Only he knows his budgets and his returns, and then working with you, there could be a level of additional reduction that might be palatable.
Yep. Thanks, John.
And Ivy, so GRNE is bearing the cost to do, to remove that top part, right, of the berm?
Yep. So they're going to lower the highest point by 15 to 20 feet.
Yep. And could that, the dirt that they remove when they lower that be relocated to build up the southern berm where the trees are to create more of a barrier? If they're removing it, can they just move it to create more of a barrier and take that into consideration with the landscaping plan? So now we have a higher surface to start with that we're putting trees on?
That is the plan. That's where the material will be coming from. That's shown on the landscaping plan.
Safe to assume though it's at the west end?
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. It's going to be used at the west end, or yes, the west end,
So
because
there's really no benefit to the entire south berm. It's just part of the south berm.
Yep. So the western end is where that south berm tapers off. So it's pretty much, it's very low in comparison to the eastern end. So we're going to build it up on that side. Any other questions? All right.
Slide.
Okay, so we've also added, based on the request, some additions to the resolution that is going to be that has been brought to our Administration Committee and our Energy and Environment Committee and has been passed by both of those committees. And this resolution will be brought to Executive Committee next Wednesday, September 8th, and County Board on September 14th. So we've added these 3 statements into our resolution to address the homeowner concerns I will read them aloud. Whereas the continued collaboration with neighboring residents, specifically in the Prairie Ridge subdivision, will be upheld by the Kane County Department of Environmental and Water Resources throughout the project to ensure partnership goals are met and implemented. And whereas Kane County at its own expense shall design and construct landscape improvements through the Brisher Road corridor, including the extension of the south berm to the west along Brisher Road at a height of 4 to 5 feet based on the White and Company plan. The landscaping shall be maintained by the landowner of the land upon which it is installed. And whereas Kane County at its own expense shall upgrade fencing along the south perimeter of the project where visible to residents in the Prairie Ridge subdivision to decorative fencing made of aluminum or wood. So these 3 clauses have been added to our resolution. And then that is all that I have today. I just want to say thank you for joining us today. We appreciate all of the feedback. And I appreciate the constant communication that all of the residents have been in with me and with the rest of our project team. We are hopeful that we can work out on answering all of the questions and provide meaningful improvements to our project plan to create a more aesthetically designed project. Those are all the presentation slides I have right now. I know that we do have folks signed up for public comment. And there are a few questions in the chat. So maybe what I will do first is address the questions in the chat since we haven't done that yet. And then if there's any questions in the audience, I will get to you guys after, and then we will go down with public comment. So our first question in the chat, a significant portion of the panels are shown located over a major gas line. Can the panels be installed over this line and how?
Arnie?
Arnie, do you want
The panels are all located to the west of the gas line.
Yeah, they're not on the gas lines. They are to the west.
Thank you. Okay.
No worries about that.
Then your pictures were wrong of where the panels are. But the slide, your panel
Sorry?
field was incorrect because as far east as the panels are showing on your slide, that would cover the North Nicor gas easement. But that might only be a couple hundred panels. It would have to be relocated elsewhere.
And the project site image is
Where the rectangular shape of the panels were, they show covering going through the Nicor easement.
But that's not the way it will be in
Okay, but those
reality.
panels that are there on the picture will have to go somewhere else, my guess would be.
It's just
The west
an artist rendering. It's not
Okay.
intended to be a technical rendering
Okay.
of the site.
Make a comment.
Next question.
it doesn't look like we have any more questions. There are a few comments, but are there any questions in the audience before we go into public comment? All right, I'm gonna grab the public comment sheet quickly. All right. Sherilyn, you want to go first?
Yes, if we can see the pictures.
Yep.
Blair, can you put up Sherilyn's pictures, please?
Stand up.
Please state your name just to be formal.
Sherilyn Cameron.
Thank you.
I had mentioned earlier in the meeting that I had a picture from a solar farm project in DeKalb. And you can see that's what they're showing the community there, what it's going to look like. That's what the panels look like, the height, the view from the road. So they know what to expect. I am hoping to see something as clear as that image of what our project is going to look like before we sign a contract. We can go to the next picture. That might have been the same. This, this is what we received in a mailing notifying us about this project. So I think this picture shows the panic in me that suddenly this is going to be the view out my window. That may be the size of the panel in the room, but you can see how elevated they are there. And we're already, this is not going to be on a flat ground. We're already 2 stories up looking at this view. And that's why I don't think there's going to be any trees that are going to screen any of this within a reasonable amount of time, maybe in 25 years. But I don't think anything can be planted to take that view away. And I don't think anybody would want that done to them. That's all.
Thank you.
Shawn.
Up next, I have Dana. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Dana. Dana, if.
Hi, I'm Dana Tykert, and I don't live along Brisher. I'm here to support my friends and neighbors who do. I'm very concerned about the fencing, but I think you've answered that question because I told you if we see any chain link, I will fight you to the nail. You can be guaranteed. I like you, Ivy, but and the other thing, I just, it's amazing to me that this is where it was decided to put this near a residential area that is so nice. And these are, I mean, these are $500,000 homes. And yeah, I'm with Sherilyn there. There's no land. I know you're working hard on this, but there's no landscaping in God's green earth that is going to cover this mess. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Up next, I have Jamie.
Now, I just signed in. I didn't know I had to make a.
Oh, no, sorry about that. No, you're okay. And then John.
I think I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay. Carrie, you're okay? All right. And then Paul.
Again, I'm Paul Cameron. I live at 3810 Ridge Point Drive. And we do appreciate you guys trying to take some time to hear our voices and the time that you spent to come out and walk the properties with us and get a little better understanding of our points of view. But I think you can appreciate the fact that given how close you are to signing a contract, there's still a lot of unanswered questions here. Landscaping is what you think it might be, what you'd like it to be, but you don't know. And the reality of the situation is that we're going to end up living with these decisions long after you guys have moved on to another project. And I just wish you'd take a little pause. And I understand you have some urgency because you feel like you need to get in the queue for the funding for the tax credits that make this project possible or feasible. But the reality of it is, all of us are going to live with this every day. And I just wish you'd take a pause and think about the consequences of these actions. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else signed up for public comment, but is there anyone else who would like to make one? All right. With that, I think we can conclude.
Yes, I think so too. I want to thank everybody one more time. Our speakers, Eric, thank you for coming. And all of you who expressed your very heartfelt feelings, we appreciate your being here. We are hoping that someday we will be proud to be a leader in clean energy and removing pollution from our world and saving money for the taxpayers of Kane County and making a better future for our children and grandchildren. And we will keep working with you to make sure that none of these, no silicon from China gets into these solar panels, and that we do the best job we possibly can to screen this project to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible to everybody who lives in the neighborhood. We want to be good neighbors to you. Anything else, Ivy?
Just some wrap-up items. My name is Ivy Klee. I have my contact info up there, but if you would like to talk more, please feel free to come up to me after the meeting. I can give you my contact information. I know a few of the residents also have my contact info. We are happy to set up meetings, continue the conversation, and hear more of your feedback about this project. We want to stay in communication with you all. And the recording of this meeting will be on our YouTube channel. If you need that, feel free to reach out to me. Again, there's going to be a meeting this Wednesday, September 1st at 9 a.m. in this room. The solar project will be discussed. There will be a different presentation for our board members. And there will be other meetings after that in the following weeks, and I can provide you with access to those meetings if you need.
And this PowerPoint slide will be on the website tomorrow.
Yep, we can put this PowerPoint slide up on our website tomorrow.
And and the agenda for the Wednesday meeting, if you go to our website and click out on calendar, that's the easiest, that's how I do it. You click on calendar, you go down to September 1st, and the environmental meeting will be right there on the website. You click on that, and the entire power purchase agreement is there, which I spent, it's only 40 pages. So I read the whole thing last night. So we want to be as transparent and provide you with as much information as possible. So Eric, Arnie, any words of wisdom? May we bring this meeting to a close then? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us tonight.